Something brought you here. Not chance. Not an algorithm. Something inside you, something that doesn't have a name yet, guided you to this moment. And I think you already know why. Because lately, the silence has been speaking. And you don't know whether to trust it. Stay. What I'm about to share with you might be the one thing that finally makes sense of everything you've been feeling. There is a kind of person in this world who has always carried something heavier than most. Not a burden, exactly. More like an awareness. An awareness that something exists beyond what everyone around them seems to see. They grew up asking questions no one could answer. They felt things others brushed off. They stayed up at night not from anxiety, but from a kind of restlessness. As if their soul was reaching for something it couldn't yet name. And as the years passed, something strange kept happening. The people around them began to drift. Slowly. Without drama. Without explanation. Friendships that once felt solid became conversations with nowhere to go. Relationships that started with fire ended in a silence neither person could fully explain. Groups, environments, roles. Things that once gave structure started to feel like clothes that no longer fit. And then came the question. The one that visits in the quiet moments. The one that comes when you're doing the dishes or lying awake at 3 a.m. Or sitting in a room full of people and still feeling completely, utterly alone. What is happening to me? If that question has ever lived inside you, this is your answer. The answer begins with something science has been quietly confirming for decades. Every living system, every body, every mind, every heart operates at a frequency. Not poetically. Literally. The human body generates measurable electromagnetic fields. The heart alone produces a field that extends well beyond the physical boundary of the skin. And that field is not static. It changes with emotion, with thought, with what you are becoming. When two people share a frequency, connection is effortless. When they don't, something subtler than words tells both of them that the resonance is gone. And here is what that means for you. The disconnection you've been feeling is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something has changed inside you. When the soul begins its expansion, and notice I said when, not if. The first thing that changes is not what you think. It's not your beliefs. It's not your habits. It's your tolerance. Suddenly, conversations that once felt normal feel like static. Spaces that once felt comfortable begin to drain you in ways you can feel in your body. And people you've known for years start to feel like strangers. This is not a personality change. This is not depression. This is not you becoming cold or antisocial. This is your frequency shifting. Imagine a city radio station. You've been tuned to it for years. You know every song, every voice, every jingle. And then one day, the dial begins to turn on its own. Not because the old station disappeared, but because something in you is ready to receive a signal that broadcasts at a different wavelength. The loneliness that comes with that shift is the silence between stations. It's not permanent. It's a transmission gap. And the people who drifted away from you, they didn't leave because you failed them. They completed a chapter. Every departure creates an opening, not a wound. A doorway. What walks through that doorway is not who you were. It's who you've been becoming all along. Every wisdom tradition in human history has described the same phenomenon. Different names, different symbols, same territory. The mystics of the Christian tradition called it the dark night of the soul. Indigenous traditions called it initiation. Jung called it the encounter with the shadow. Buddhist thought calls it the dissolution of the constructed self. What they all describe is this: a period when the life you built around a version of yourself that was never fully real begins to come undone. It doesn't announce itself. It just begins. Things stop working the way they used to. Relationships that seemed permanent show cracks. Goals that once drove you feel hollow. The identity you wore like a second skin starts to feel like a costume. And in the middle of all of it, silence. An ocean of internal silence that the people around you can't seem to reach into. That silence has a name. It's called the threshold. The threshold is the space between what you were and what you are becoming. It is the most disorienting and most sacred place a human being can inhabit. A caterpillar dissolving inside its cocoon is not dying. It is reorganizing at the cellular level. It cannot know, in the middle of that dissolution, what it is becoming. It only knows that what it was no longer holds it the way it once did. You are in that cocoon right now. Not dissolving. Reorganizing. And the teachers who have walked this path before, in every century, on every continent, all report the same thing on the other side of the threshold. A clarity that doesn't shake. A peace that doesn't depend on anything external. A sense of self so deep and so quiet that no loss, no departure, no silence can reach the center of it. How do you know if what you are experiencing is a soul in transformation, and not simply a difficult season of life? There are 7 signs, and they tend to appear together. The first sign: noise has become unbearable. Not noise in the literal sense, though that too, sometimes, but the noise of empty talk. Conversations that go nowhere. Social rituals that used to feel normal and now feel like a performance you can no longer give. This is not cynicism. It is your nervous system responding to a frequency mismatch. Your soul is no longer willing to spend energy on what isn't real. The second sign: your body registers what your mind hasn't yet processed. You walk into a room and feel drained before a single word is spoken. You leave a conversation and need to sit in silence for an hour. You feel exhausted after being around people, even people you love. This is not weakness. It is the signal of a system that processes energy more deeply than most. You are not too sensitive. You are precisely sensitive. The third sign, you carry an inexplicable sense of waiting. Not waiting for something specific. Just waiting. A sense that something is coming, that you cannot yet describe. A certainty, somewhere beneath thought, that what exists now is not the final chapter. That feeling is not hope. It is recognition. Your soul recognizing the shape of what is approaching. The fourth sign, your dreams have become unusually vivid or symbolic. The period of soul transformation almost always activates the dream world. Images that stay with you for days. Recurring symbols you can't explain. Encounters with versions of yourself you don't recognize. This is not random. The deeper self speaks through image and metaphor. When the waking mind is too defended to hear it directly. The fifth sign, pretending has become physically impossible. At some point in your life, you were probably very good at this. Saying, "I'm fine," when you weren't. Adapting yourself to what the room needed. Performing the version of you that kept the peace. That capacity has not diminished because you've become difficult. It has diminished because your soul can no longer afford the cost of inauthenticity. The sixth sign, you are drawn to depth in ways you can't explain rationally. Books you never would have opened. Questions that feel more urgent than answers. A pull toward teachings, toward wisdom traditions. Toward any map of the inner territory you are crossing. Your soul is looking for its own reflection. Looking for proof that someone else has walked this landscape and come out the other side. The seventh sign, you sense a purpose you cannot yet articulate. Not a career, not a goal. Something more specific. More personal. A knowing that lives somewhere beneath language. That you are here for something. That will only become clear when you have fully crossed the threshold you are standing on. Understanding the territory is not the same as navigating it. So let me give you 3 things you can actually do with what you now know. The first, release the war against the process. Most of the suffering in a threshold period does not come from the transformation itself. It comes from the energy we spend trying to return to what the transformation is moving us away from. Trying to repair relationships that have completed themselves. Trying to rebuild identities that were always temporary. Trying to feel comfortable in spaces where your frequency no longer resonates. The river does not fight the rock. It moves around it. The question is not, how do I go back? The question is, what is forward asking of me? The second, learn the difference between solitude and hiding. Solitude is a sacred practice. It is where the soul hears itself most clearly. Hiding is solitude used as armor. One is open to what is coming. The other is closed to it. You are allowed to need quiet. You are allowed to withdraw from spaces that drain you. You are allowed to wait. But keep the door open. Not wide open. Just open. Enough for what resonates to find its way to you. The third, trust the timing, even when the timing makes no sense. Transformation does not follow a calendar. It doesn't care that you've been in the threshold for 6 months. Or 2 years. Or longer. It moves at the speed it moves. And that speed, as counterintuitive as it sounds, is precisely the right speed for the depth of what is being built in you. The roots that take the longest to grow. Hold the tree through the storms that would destroy everything else. I want to leave you with something. Not advice. Not a technique. Just the truth. The silence you've been living inside is not emptiness. It is space. The space that opens up when everything that was filling it but wasn't meant to stay has finally moved on. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing at the things everyone else seems to do with such ease. You are in the middle of something that most people never find the courage to enter. A genuine encounter with your own soul. with who you actually are, beneath the version of you that was built to fit. That encounter changes everything. Not immediately. Not loudly. But permanently. If something in this message reached you, if even a single word landed somewhere true, then stay. There is so much more of this conversation still waiting to happen.